Obamacare. Ain't nobody got time for that.
Stupid people are ruining America.
The president just wants to take care of you. He just doesn't think you're able to do it for yourself.
There's a very thin line between communism, progressivism, Marxism, socialism.
The empire will strike back.
You still don't know that this was political.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of America Our Way. I am your host, Dustin Hoyt. Got a great show planned for today. Lots of stuff going on in politics. Plenty of things to talk about. We're going to be talking about Eric Cantor losing his primary race in Virginia, losing touch with his folks out there. We're going to talk about what happened in that situation. We're going to address some of the speculation with the Tea Party involvement, things like that. We're going to also talk about how he was beaten, why he was beaten. There's a lot of speculation on that, and we're going to jump in with a common sense side, as we do here on America Our Way on Vigilant Liberty Radio. We're also going to be talking about the Bergdahl deal. We're going to be discussing what went down with that, how it went down, and why it matters. We're also going to be talking about immigration that ties into the whole Eric Cantor thing. We're going to jump into that as well. Going to be a great show, folks. And I also want to talk a little bit about the Texas GOP party platform. It was kind of a big deal, made some national headlines. We'll discuss it. I know a lot of you folks are not from Texas, but I do think it'll raise some eyebrows to take a look at what some of the GOP in their own states are focusing on and what they think on some of these issues. Now, to just get into the Eric Cantor thing here, it's the first time that a majority leader has been unseated in a primary. The first time it's ever happened. And he didn't just lose by a little bit. He lost by a whopping 11 percentage points. 11%. That's not losing an election. That's getting stomped. That's getting destroyed. I mean, it was a landslide. And what's even better is it's Ted Cruz-esque. And by that I mean Dr. Bratt, the guy that won, the guy that beat Cantor, was outspent immensely, was out fundraised by a mountain. I mean, you hear a lot of talking heads say it's David and Goliath, and that's exactly what happened. I mean, the guy toppled a giant in Republican politics, in establishment Republican politics. Eric Cantor raised something like $5 million for his campaign, and Bratt only raised $400,000 and spent something like $40,000. He only spent like not even $100,000 in this last run here, and still just trounced Eric Cantor. And a lot of people are saying that it has to do with Eric Cantor's position on immigration, and I have to say I don't think that's it. I think that was part of it, but I don't think that's it. When you look at what happened, you had Eric Cantor challenge local officials and try to get a chairman unseated, and the grassroots in Virginia just showed solidarity. They all teamed up and picked a candidate, Bratt, and just put all of their weight behind it. And in a local race like that, in a House congressional district, you cannot do that. You cannot take on the people in your district as part of your election strategy. When you go to win an election, your job is to win votes. And if you can't even get your own party officials who live in that district, work in that district, run the cities, you can't win. There's no way that you win that. It's literally punching yourself in the face. And I say literally because I have this image of Eric Cantor getting in front of a microphone and just repeatedly hitting himself in the face with everything that he did with this election. He just defeated himself with this move to challenge the grassroots. And it's something that a lot of people don't understand in terms of politics, especially when you look at, say, John Boehner's reelection or Mitch McConnell's Senate reelection bid. You're not going to unseat these guys unless you challenge them at home and you take on the issues that they stand for. Now, in the instance of John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, their more moderate positions resonate with a lot of people. It's called a populist stance. And in many of the cases, you have things like immigration, which do appeal widely to people as long as you don't tack it to amnesty. And immigration reform is something that the country desperately needs. It happens every 30 years or so where we have to revise our immigration laws. And it's not because of a particular travesty that wells up, but it has more to do with the fact that our immigration status, just the amount of people that come in and the reasons they're coming in, changes drastically so quickly that the laws have to be upgraded. And so I don't think necessarily that Eric Cantor's position on we need immigration reform killed him so much as the fact that he was willing to work with Democrats. Now, a lot of people have this misconception about what Congress is meant to do. A lot of people think that when you go to Congress, your job is to work with Democrats and get stuff done. So many people say, they just need to get stuff done, pass laws, and fix our country. The problem is, the same people that are saying, I just wish Congress would get something done, have a specific idea in mind of what they want to get done. And they don't take into account the fact that the things that are going to come out of Washington are going to only vaguely resemble what they want done. And in many, many cases, it's only the name that has anything to do with what they wanted. The best recent example of this is the USA Freedom Act, which was spearheaded by Justin Amash out of Michigan in the House of Representatives, and some other freedom-minded Democrats as well. They wanted to end NSA spying on American citizens. They wrote this great bill, had a lot of co-sponsors behind it, and then it went to committee, and the establishment and the White House gutted it and made it completely ineffective in terms of stopping the spying. They just changed the way that the NSA asks for the data. That's all that they did. And so, naturally, people who authored the bill, like Justin Amash, did not vote for it because it was a travesty. And it becomes a problem because then you have people that will be campaigned against saying, you voted against the USA Freedom Act. How can you vote against USA's freedom? And people don't understand enough to be able to comprehend what goes on. And that's one reason I love Justin Amash, and I talk about him all the time, is because he has posted an explanation and the way he voted on every single vote, and he's never missed one. He's not missed a single vote in Congress. Whereas when you look at Eric Cantor, I doubt you could tell me the way he voted on anything except for voting against Obamacare, because you can't not vote against Obamacare. I think what really killed Eric Cantor is the fact that he has to work with the minority leader in the House. He has to work with them. And when that happens, when you have Republicans working with Democrats, you inevitably get pushed further towards progressive ideals. And some people will say, well, they need to compromise. That's not the case. And if you need proof of that, look at Ted Cruz and his immense popularity in Texas. People sent him to Washington to say, Democrats, stop. Enough of your nonsense, enough of your taxes, enough of your laws that hurt our country, enough of your reckless spending. Eric Cantor, rather than saying, no, Democrats, you're not going to do this, you're not going to hurt our country anymore, went off on this tangent, on this improper campaign, on bad practices in Washington of compromise. In Washington, we don't want Congress to compromise. And you know that's kind of a libertarian position to take, because generally speaking, the people who are more informed about what's going on in Congress do not want the people they like to agree with people they don't, because that generally means people they don't like will get things they don't want. Meaning, I don't want anything Nancy Pelosi wants, generally speaking, to get voted on. I don't want it to go to a vote. I don't want Nancy Pelosi to be able to propose amendments. I don't want her voice to have an impact on the country, because I think she's a loon, and I think that her ideas would help destroy the country. Same for Senator Dianne Feinstein and her vehement fight against guns. And you see a few people who are informed and understand this concept and do well in acting against it. And I saw this picture, this comic on Tumblr, And I know Tumblr's kind of a bastion of feminism and things like that, but it really kind of hit home. And when you compromise with people you don't like, it's, for example, the Second Amendment, you have a cake. Let's say you have this nice cake, and this is what the comic strip did. Showed some American citizen, average citizen, sitting down with a cake, and the cake had this lovely icing on it, said Second Amendment rights. And you have somebody approach you, says, give me some of your cake. And you're just like, no, I'm not going to give you my cake. And they're like, let's compromise, just give me half your cake. And so then you agree and you give them half your cake. And then as soon as they're done eating, they turn around and they say, give me more of your cake. Give me your cake. And you're like, no, I'm not giving you I'm not giving you my cake. And then they're like, let's compromise. I'll just give me half of what you've got. And then you compromise, and now you've only got a quarter of your cake left. And as soon as they eat that little bit, they come back and they say, give me your cake. And then you compromise again, and now you're left with an eighth, and then a 16th, and then a 32nd, and until you're just left with crumbs. And then they're going to want your crumbs. And that's how compromise in Washington works. And this is why Democrats have been so successful, is because when you get Republicans that are like, oh, I can't be extreme, I have to compromise, and then they don't realize that this battle's going to happen again, and they're going to be pushed to compromise again. And so every time you give up or you compromise with the enemy, you lose ground. And then they're going to come back and want another compromise, so where you will lose more ground. And that's just the way it works in Washington. So the idea that you have to go to Congress and pass laws is ridiculous. I don't want more laws passed. I don't want any laws passed. I want them to stop passing laws. There are too many. I want them to repeal laws. And I think most of you would agree. For instance, you can't go buy whole organic milk from a farmer. It has to go through FDA inspection. You can't just go over to your neighbor's house and say, hey, you got this awesome dairy cow. Can you sell me some milk? No, that's actually illegal. And it's things like this that really did Eric Cantor in. Coupling that with fighting the grassroots, and you get this caricature of a guy who is willingly giving up parts of your freedom or submitting to beliefs that you think are harmful to the country. Well, it's no wonder he got defeated. It's no wonder he lost so badly. And it's really sad because a lot of the people that are saying, oh, this is a big Tea Party victory, this is a small market, self-proclaimed Tea Party guy that won this race, but the Tea Party didn't help. Why didn't the Tea Party help? How come the Tea Party, ignored him? And then there's lots of people speculating about why that was. Some people have said, the Tea Party didn't think he could win. They've said that, the Tea Party's focused elsewhere. They're picking their battles, and they thought this guy was a losing horse to bet on. That wasn't a safe bet. Let me tell you, there are two reasons that the Tea Party didn't get involved that don't involve crazy speculation about, not betting on a losing horse. The people in the Tea Party Patriots, Jenny Beth Martin, she was on the record yesterday, and she said as much, and, I came to this conclusion the first time I heard this notion that Tea Party Patriots or the Tea Party networks in general, the super PACs, didn't get involved. And that's because it's what happened. So we're going to get into that. Jenny Beth Martin, the leader of Tea Party Patriots, is dedicating all of her resources to the Senate because Republicans don't even hold the Senate. Not even establishment Republicans, no Republicans. The Democrats have the majority. And so it makes sense that they would contribute all of their resources to winning as many Senate seats as possible in the 2014 midterms. That's just good common sense. Why spend money on seats in the House when you know that those House seats, like the House is still in Republican hands and you know it's going to stay there and probably increase? Why waste your time and money? It doesn't make sense. And so to accuse the Tea Party of not supporting this guy is crazy. And Jenny Beth Martin said as much. She said she went out a bunch of times, 4 times in the last 6 months, and has been in contact with Dr. Bratt, and that she found they didn't need the help. She said that the Virginia grassroots was so organized, going door to door, and was doing such a good job of spreading the message that they didn't feel the need to intervene. And that's good. When you have a population, enough volunteers getting involved where you don't need to throw extra money at TV and radio campaigns, that's a good thing. And that's what happened in this state. And the other thing I'd like to say, though, is that people are saying Dr. Bratt, he's a doctor in economics. He's not. He got his doctorate in theology, okay? He's a doctor of religious studies, all right? He's not an economics doctor. He's not an economics professor, but his BA is in economics, not his PhD. We'll have more when we come back.
Hi, this is Alan Bordius of theirfinesthour.net. Catch me here on VLR Monday nights and also on Tuesday nights on the Roundtable of Extreme Liberty.
Ladies and gents, there has been a lot of discussion about the Bo Bergdahl situation. Private First Class, now known as Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, was a prisoner of war of the Taliban for quite a while. His parents have been lobbying to get him back for quite some time. He was the only prisoner of war in Afghanistan, the only prisoner of war of the Taliban. And there has been a lot of discussion about this guy, what he thought, what he did, and whether or not the deal was justified, where we traded 5 high-level Al-Qaeda leaders to Al-Qaeda to get Bergdahl back. And it's one of these things where people on both sides have been chiming in on both sides of the argument. You've had a lot of people say, he's a deserter, we shouldn't have brought him back. You had a lot of people say that, what we traded was too much. These 5 leaders, we shouldn't have traded them. All that kind of stuff. And I think that probably first and foremost, the one thing that we need to look at more than anything is the fact that we negotiated with terrorists. Regardless of how you feel about what we were negotiating on, we were negotiating with terrorists. Now, the problem with negotiating with terrorists is that you legitimize them as a group, and you inspire them to get more leverage against you because they know that you'll come to the table. They know that you will play ball. Now, this is something that's been, as much has been said in the media, and I agree with it on that one front. I agree. We should not have been negotiating with terrorists because we've simply inspired them to capture more soldiers or American citizens. And, of course, you saw a video come out of an American woman and her Canadian husband who are also captured. They're civilians, captured by the Taliban. You saw a video coming out saying, please, American government, save us. So you've already got the Taliban saying, hey, look, we've got more. You want to trade some more? And that's what's going to happen, is that they're going to continue this sort of campaign of capturing people because they know they can get their leaders back from Guantanamo. I mean, the big one that they still want is the blind sheik. He's still imprisoned, and they still want him. So I would wager, I would predict that they're going to continue trying to capture people and get someone worth trading to the Obama administration, the blind sheik. It would not surprise me if they tried to overwhelm a squad and capture, multiple soldiers based on that premise. It's, I think, something that is a problem. And if you want to see what I think we should do in terms of negotiating with terrorists, we should look at, if you've ever seen the movie Tropic Thunder, you've seen Tom Cruise, quote unquote, negotiating with terrorists in Burma, Myanmar. They capture Ben Stiller and they demand money for his return, and Tom Cruise tells them to F their own face and that he will rain fire and brimstone and just crush them, and then hangs up on them, says we don't negotiate with terrorists. I think that's exactly what we should have done in this situation. We don't negotiate with terrorists. Now, a lot of people will cite, what we did to trade prisoners of war in previous wars, what we did to trade in Vietnam or, say, Korea or something like that. And those are different situations insofar as they are not terror groups. They are not concerned with blowing up civilians. They may attack in military fashion civilian populations, but it's more outright than that, if that makes sense. It's not it's not the same as Al-Qaeda. When you deal with a terrorist group, you invite more terrorism. You embolden them. And this is why we have the notion, the idea, the concept of not negotiating with terrorists, because we know what that does. So we have gotten to this place now where we do negotiate with them, and I think that's a huge problem. And unfortunately, we traded high-level terrorists for this one soldier. Now, these high-level guys, as has been pointed out, are going to be able to fundraise a lot of money. They're, part of the leadership of the Taliban, and they could help remobilize the group, reactivate it, and build up its strength. And that's a very real, very serious concern that it seems like not very many people are worried about. And I think it's really sad that we decided to trust the Qatari government, the government of Qatar. And when you look at their track record in terms of human rights violations, the amount of Al-Qaeda in their country, it's something that is terrifying. And a very good report was done on this by CNN's Aaron Burnett, and I know a lot of you, liberal media, but seriously, Aaron Burnett did a good report. She went out to a souk, a shopping place, a market, if you will, and was asking about the Taliban in Qatar. And most of them I don't know what you're talking about. We didn't hear about this deal. And there was one guy that she talked to who said, "Oh yeah, Taliban's here. We don't care. We know they're here. They live here. They don't cause problems. So we don't worry about them." And that's, something serious, is that the Taliban is something that the people are there are just like, "Oh yeah, it's whatever." And you see this in a lot of Middle Eastern countries. It's, a lack of infrastructure, a lack of organization and security, and a lack of concern because, they're not a threat to Muslims. Not really. They're, a threat sometimes to some of the minority groups, Sunni versus Shiite, that kind of thing, which is like Protestants and Catholics, if you will. And, the idea that we're going to trust the government of Qatar to take care of these terrorists and keep them from being terrorists is, in my opinion, insane. I would not trust the Qatari government to handle this. It's not something I would have trusted them with at all. I wouldn't have trusted any of the Muslim countries to hold these guys for any period of time, and especially wouldn't have done any kind of deal where they were released. And a lot of the soldiers' families and veterans have come out and said, it's a deeply insulting thing that soldiers died to capture these guys and you just let them out. Then I have to agree. Why are we doing anything? Why are we compromising with people that are going to, kill Americans or organize the death of Americans or fundraise for the death of Americans? It's a very serious, very real concern. Now, I'm not a fan of Guantanamo Bay at all. I believe that people in Guantanamo Bay, they are people, they're not monsters. Some of them may not even be guilty, we don't know, should be put to trial. They should be put on trial. I don't care if it's military or civilian. They should be put on trial, and if they're found guilty, put in jail. But they need to have due process, because our constitutional right to due process does not derive from the Constitution. It derives from our natural right to a trial by jury. As Americans, if you believe in the Constitution, you believe that these rights are natural. You don't believe that these are rights that specifically fall to American citizens. You believe that the right to life extends to every human being, period. And if that right extends, so do the other constitutional rights. That's just the way it is. Now, another concern with Bergdahl is his desertion. And his fellow soldiers have flat out said that he is a deserter. He walked away. He talked about it before he left. And he left a letter saying, he didn't want to fight anymore. And for whatever reason, this moron went out to find the Taliban. I don't know if he thought he was going to become a hero diplomat and cause the group to just lay down their arms, but whatever the case, he's an idiot for seeking out the Taliban. And the Taliban have said that he had escaped several times and was not working with them. Now, I don't necessarily believe that's true. I don't think there's any way we'll ever know if he defected instead of just deserting his post. But what we do know is that he needs to go on trial for desertion. And I think Mark Levin made the best point about this. He said he went through and quoted writings from George Washington and said that with desertion, he would offer a reward or a leniency to soldiers who returned to battle. He would say, okay, look, we'll forgive you. You just got to come back to your post. You might have to sit in the brig for a day or something. But Washington also had instances where he said desertion cannot be tolerated, and so he would publicly execute deserters on the spot and leave them there as an example for the other soldiers. Do not leave your post. You signed your butt to Uncle Sam. Well, at the time it was the cause, and you're going to stick it out. You signed your word. That's it. And a lot of the Marines especially will, feel that they'll resonate with this, because for the Marine Corps, it's like a cult. It's you are the Corps. You are the Corps, period. Corps, God, country. Or Corps, country, God. It's either way, but the fact of the matter is, a lot of these soldiers are coming out and saying, how could we rescue this guy who walked away from his post? He deserted and did this to himself. And I would agree. I mean, the guy went looking for the Taliban by all accounts, and so his capture is a direct result of his own stupidity. The idea that we would trade, Muhammad Nabi, Mullah Nouri, Abdul Wasik, Kalarala Kakariwa, and the other guy, the idea that we would trade all these folks for this one soldier who was an idiot is ridiculous to me. Now, I would argue there may have been something more plausible only if we were still at war, seriously at war in Afghanistan, and, an example could be made of him. But we don't really have this problem of desertion like they did in the Revolutionary War. It's not like it was, where you have to make a serious example of a deserter. But the fact remains that our country is less safe because of this deal. And you've got all these people in the administration coming out with talking points saying, we don't believe these folks to be threats. We don't believe that it is a problem to be, and we don't think that we'll have to go in and catch these guys again, etc. I think that's a load of malarkey. I mean, these guys are top Al-Qaeda leaders. They're obviously going to go back to the fight, especially after spending, years in an American prison without a trial or anything. And that's, them's the breaks. The administration should have stuck with Obama's line that it didn't matter what the cost was, we had to get our POW back. That would make more sense. Even if I disagree, they at least need to stop pretending that these guys are not going to be dangerous terrorists. The administration needs to stop pretending that what they did will cause no harm. They need to say that we decided that their threat is not as important as bringing the soldier back. Period. I mean, if they want to make an argument that is not completely stupid, that's the one to make. I mean, I still think it's stupid to trade terrorist leaders for a soldier who is probably a deserter, but the fact remains that the arguments they're just making are terrible on top of the bad decision. And another thing, and I've talked about this before, but I'll touch on it again. A lot of people are saying that Bergdahl's dad made jihadi comments and they think he's a Muslim. And I say that in the derogatory way to mock the people who say it. But his dad grew the beard to appeal to the Taliban so that they would show mercy to his son. And I'll say, I said this last week and I'm going to say it again. if your kid is captured by the Taliban, you better freaking grow a beard and learn to speak Arabic. Make some Muslim friends. Because if you're not doing everything you can to get your child out of harm's way, you're a bad parent. That's just the way it goes. And so I don't fault Bergdahl's father for that, and I don't fault him for thanking the terrorists for not killing his son. He's grateful his son's not dead, and it's not illogical for him to thank them for that. They could have killed him, but they didn't. So this whole notion, and plus he's a Calvinist, guys. He's like a Quaker. He's like a Quaker with electricity. We'll have more when we come back.
Hi, this is Missy Bordius. Join me as I share my womanly bits on the Conservative Feminist Show, 11 p.m. on Fridays, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
All right, folks, we're back. Now, I want to touch on immigration because this is an issue that I have gone back and forth on for a while, and I had to do some soul searching and some philosophizing, if you will, to kind of figure out what I think the best approach is and what would be best for the country. And, you know, it took me a couple of weeks here. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I haven't done a segment on it for that reason. As a libertarian, a lot of libertarians are pro-amnesty. A lot of them are not. As you know, a former conservative, I can't help but feel like that securing our border is incredibly important, especially as someone who grew up in the post 9/11 age. It's, you know, security is important. But I've finally come to terms with how I feel about it, and I'm going to relate that to you folks now as best I can. I want to first say that it's not an impersonal issue for me. I have worked in restaurants for years. My family has always been, you know, a big proponent that everybody should wait tables at least once in their life for a couple of months just to see what it's like, because everybody goes out to eat, and not everyone is kind to the people serving them. Not everyone tips at all. Some people tip very poorly despite getting good service. Some people don't understand that service dictates how you tip, not percentages and things like that. And so since I spent so much time in the service industry, and I grew up in Texas for the most part, you know, illegal immigrants are not, you know, a strange concept to me. I know plenty of them. I know them personally. I've spent time with them. I've hung out with them. And you know, a lot of people might say, that's blasphemy. You know, they're criminals, broke the law. Look, it's not a crime where there is a victim. Now, bear with me. I know a lot of people say that illegal immigration is a problem because it takes jobs from Americans. And I agree to an extent. I agree that it does take jobs from Americans, but because of the way our minimum wage system works, because of the way our tax system works, illegal immigrants are not this horrible group that's stealing from Americans like they are propagandized to be. Illegal immigrants overwhelmingly are working jobs for wages that most people would not agree to work for. And people can charge those wages, the extremely low wages, because the immigrants are not legal. And so they can underpay them, quote unquote, because of our laws. And so it makes more sense for employers to hire illegals because they will work for less. Now, a lot of people will say, well, why don't they just hire a good, you know, an American who does their job and blah, blah, blah. It's not that simple. The reason people hire illegal immigrants is because they will work hard for a lower wage, and really that's all you need to know in terms of where they stand. These people come to America looking for opportunity, looking for success, the American dream. They just want to not live in dirt and squalor. They want, to be near good medical care. They want the ability to own a house and send their kids to school. They want a better life for their children. And this is not a controversial concept. Most Americans, when you look at why these people came here, they would say, well, of course, I just want them to be here legally. So when you look at it, most people don't have a problem with the actual immigrants. The problem is how they got here. And so for me, when I look at immigration and when I look at what needs to happen in terms of immigrants being let into the country, I look to the past, and you had illegal immigrants coming in the 20s and 30s, setting up homesteads, mining, creating goods and services, improving the land they lived on, and the American government came in, tried to destroy their houses and kick them out, and when that didn't work, because back then citizens could defend themselves a hell of a lot better than they can today, the government would lose the argument, and they would lose the fights. And so then the government was like, well, we obviously can't kick them out, we better just let them stay, and they would give them, deeds to the land they improved, give them legal status, legal papers. Now, I'm not saying that we should just blanket citizenship everybody that gets here, because I don't think that our wage system, I don't think that our minimum wage laws are conducive to a free economy. I think that our minimum wage laws, coupled with our immigration laws, are a huge burden on the economy. I think it actually destroys American prosperity. And I back that up by saying your meals at a restaurant could cost anywhere from 1.5 to 2 times the price if the illegals were paid full wages under regular citizenship. That's just the way it goes. And even then, most illegals that work at restaurants are paid just as much as the average American that gets in there anyway, but because so many illegals are willing to do the job for a low price, you don't have the prices being driven up by Americans with a trumped-up self-worth. And it's not an insult to America, it's just a lot of people think a lot of American citizens think that they should make a lot of money for a little work. And this is obvious when you look at the protests on minimum wage laws. I mean, look at the people 15 for 15 or 10 for 10. And it's not an acceptable dynamic. It's not an economically smart policy. None of it is. The idea that we don't want immigrants in this country to do sanitation jobs, landscaping jobs, food service jobs, hotel cleaning jobs, the idea that you don't want these immigrants here to do those jobs because other Americans would do them is crazy. What you want in a free economy that creates great wealth, that has more innovation, more business, that grows our country, is the ability to agree to work for whatever wages are fair. And, this is something you can find at any job you go to. If you go to, the average Walmart worker and say, do you think that you're paid a fair wage? They'll usually say, well, I wish I made more. Everybody wishes they make more. Everybody in the country wishes they made more money. That's not the question. The question is, are you paid a fair wage, or did you agree to work for this? Is it fair? And sometimes they'll say, well, I couldn't get a better paying job. That's not because the country's cruel, and it's not because the evil corporations are refusing to pay them. It's because they are not necessarily worth more than that. That's just the way it goes. Some people are not meant to run corporations. Some people are not management material. Some people do not deserve a promotion or raise. Period. That's just the way it is. That is reality. That's real life. I mean, how many of you out there, and I know it's every single one of you, how many of you out there work with someone who believes they should get a promotion or a raise but their work is not at a level where it is worth a raise or a promotion. Everybody works with someone like this. You can think, oh, well, yeah, this guy here, he's always talking about wanting a raise or a promotion, but he doesn't even put forth more than the minimum effort, or he's not particularly smart, or she's not a hard worker, she's not particularly smart. Everybody knows someone like that. Everybody knows that lazy person who just is not getting better at their job, is not working really, really hard, and probably don't deserve that promotion or raise. So, if you've got garbage workers making minimum wage, just as an example, the trash man making minimum wage, would you rather pay less for sanitation services to people who are agreeing to work for that wage, or would you rather pay them more based simply on the fact that they're a citizen or because they think they deserve more and demand it rather than looking for a better paying job or improving their skills to do better? The obvious answer is you would rather have a voluntary market. You would rather have people agreeing to work for that salary and working hard to improve themselves or start their own business if they don't like it, if they can't really find work. That's how our economy thrives. It's not because we pat people on the back and hold their hand through it. It's because we demand that you work hard in this country. In this country, you bust your hump and you earn the house with the picket fence and the dog and the 2.5 kids. You earn that new car. You earn these things. And right now, the way our immigration laws work, we have people willing to come here and work for wages that most of us would not agree to, but instead, a lot of people are calling for them all to be deported or put up, the Great Wall of Texas. Now, I am not opposed to securing our borders at all. I think the Great Wall of Texas is not such a bad idea. I'm opposed to funding it through our government because they don't know how to spend money. But I'm not opposed to securing the border. I think the idea in itself is sound because nations have a right to secure borders. And I think that the idea that we need that because people are breaking the law, though, the reason that people say we need to secure the borders, I think that is a flaw. I think that is incorrect. The reason we need to secure our borders is for national security from invasion, terrorists, things like that. Not because of illegal immigrants. What we need to do is expand the work visa program so these people can come here, get jobs, work, send their kids to school, earn money, pay taxes, buy property, improve the land, and things like that. Why not? I mean, if you're in the middle class living in a nice neighborhood, it's not like you're worried about 12 illegal immigrants buying the $200,000 house next to you. A lot of these folks, they're going to move into impoverished areas and work for a living. And not everybody that's poor is a criminal. A lot of that has to do with, influences from other poor people in America who think they're entitled to things and so they can take them by force. Or people getting into drugs, which are criminalized, and therefore they become criminals for that reason. So the whole concept behind illegal immigration in and of itself really bugs me because it's based on flawed premises. It's based on bad thinking. Now, I do not agree with amnesty because I do not agree with the way our wage system is set up. If we were to just blanket amnesty 11 million people, we would have 11 million people that are starting out at the wages agreed to in Congress by people who don't understand economics, and you would have this inflation across the board of goods and services. For example, you would see lawn services, landscaping services go way up because overwhelmingly illegal immigrants will just buy a lawnmower, go mow lawns, hire a couple of their buddies to come do it too, and they'll just split the money at the end of the day, and it won't necessarily be based on hourly work. But when you're guaranteed a minimum payment for your hourly work, how many people have seen a friend at work or a coworker ride the clock? How many of you have seen them take longer just because they'll get paid that extra $2, $3 if they wait another half hour? A lot of people do that. And that's the real problem with our wage system, is that you're not paid based on how much you work. You're paid based on what the government says you ought to earn, period. And that's a problem. So until we solve the minimum wage problem in our country, which until more people understand how economics works is not going to happen, but until we solve that problem, amnesty is not the answer. Giving them legal papers to where they're not breaking the law, simply trying to earn a living for their family, a work visa of sorts, that's a good idea. Because a lot of these folks are just trying to improve their lives. And if you were born in Mexico or communist China or Cuba, you would be hauling butt to America just like I would. You would try to get here as fast as you can because this is the greatest country on earth. And here, unlike anywhere else on planet Earth, you can come here and work hard and be rewarded for it. You can take care of your family. And if they get sick, you've got good doctors. You don't have as many corrupt officials that will skin your family alive simply for being there or simply because you're on property they want. I mean, we do have that problem, but it's not as abundant as it is in these other countries. So it's not surprising these people come here looking for better lives. But until we fix the minimum wage problem, no amnesty. But work visas, there's nothing wrong with that. Let the people work here with legal status. They're just trying to live good lives. We'll have more when we come back.
Hi, this is Taylor, and while you're listening to all the other great shows here on Vigilant Liberty Radio, be sure to check out my show on Saturday nights called Saturday Night Cigar Lounge. You never know what we're going to talk about. It's always a fun time. That's Saturday Night Cigar Lounge, Saturday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, here on Vigilant Liberty Radio.
All right, we're back, everyone. Now, the thing I want to end on today in this last segment is the Texas GOP party platforms. Now, I know that many of you are not from Texas, so you probably don't have any clue what I'm talking about and don't think it affects you. Well, it does, primarily for one big reason. There are two states in the Union that generally decide the way the country goes. That is California and Texas. And if you don't believe me, then just simply look at politics. California is the state pushing for massive increases in minimum wage, massive increases in government services, massive increases in size of government. They're also the ones pushing for gun control, regulation of the environment, and all that crap. And when you look at Texas, you've got the booming economy that comes with a very low amount of regulation, a very good energy policy, and you've got education rates going up, you've got cities growing, and you've got a lot of rights that are protected. Now, you could swap those in terms of social rights. You can say that Texas has blue laws that are tyrannical, and you would be correct. And you can say that California has got really good social freedoms insofar as you can get liquor at the grocery store. In Texas, it's illegal for a grocery store to sell liquor. Now, I think that because the GOP overwhelmingly runs the state of Texas, the Texas GOP platforms are important. And what they decide to do generally tends to set the tone for a lot of the Republicans in the country. And you can see this with the massive amounts of Tea Party activists and conservative activists in the state. And when you look at California, you see the Code Pink, the Occupy Wall Street, all of these folks. So it goes both directions, but the two states pull the country one direction or the other. They're the two, heavy hitters. Now, arguably, California's heavy-hitting ability comes directly from the Reagan years, which built up the economy, and the tech boom, which happened in California. Now, it's my opinion that a lot of the innovation in California happened under Reagan's watch and a lot of the Republican governors of that state. But you can also see a lot of their energy shortage problems, which I'll have you know that electricity comes from Texas, thank you very much, and their water problems and things of that nature. I mean, you've got entire farming communities being destroyed by environmentalist policies in that state. And here in Texas, we have our drought problems, don't get me wrong, but rather than trying to protect the environment per se, we're trying to work on, desalination plants and ways to get more water for our state from our state. We've got leaders here that are concerned with making our state independent from the union. Now, a lot of Democrats will argue that Texas is a welfare state because we take more from the federal government than we send in. I would argue that we take too much from the federal government, and it's the federal government's fault because they force policies on the government of the Texas. Now, the point is, Texas matters, and it matters more than people think. Now, I know a lot of people say their state's the best, whatsoever, all that kind of stuff, and you may think I'm biased because I'm from Texas, but let me tell you, from a national perspective, there is a reason that Texas policies set the standard. There is a reason that California policies set the standard on the left. We have the most people. We have the booming economies. We have the political swing, the electoral points. That's just the lay of the land. It's the way it goes. Now, this is why, to me, the Texas GOP platform planks are so important. Now, that's not to say that every politician out of Texas adheres to these planks. God bless them if they don't, because a lot of them I have a problem with. But it is important when you look at what the Texas GOP agreed upon in terms of how it will affect the nation as a whole. And I think that the new GOP party platforms that were put out just last week, Monday, I guess, from Fort Worth at the Texas Leadership Conference, the GOP Leadership Conference, I think they're detrimental to the cause. I think that they hurt the cause of spreading conservative ideals, libertarian ideals, of spreading the message of free markets, of freedom. And I say that because one perfect example, there was a guy at the conference passing out this petition saying that Texas does not recognize the right of courts to overturn its gay marriage ban. And as many of you know, I'm pro-gay marriage because I don't think it's the government's business who you make a contract with, and I don't think it's my neighbor's business who I make a contract with. I'm not hurting my neighbors. I don't care, gay, straight, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm not affecting my neighbors. I'm not hurting their property. I'm not violating their rights by doing any of that. Now, regardless of your religious beliefs, or if you think gay anything is icky, it's not important. It's like this argument came out during the Chick-fil-A debacle, and I think it's important to note, and I love this. If you don't want gay marriage, don't get gay married. That's it. It's a very simple concept. If you don't like something, don't do it yourself. But that is by no means a mandate for you to enforce those beliefs on the populace as a whole. Now, Texas GOP platforms that came out were horrendous for a few reasons. Now, one of them that people are taking a little too seriously, I think, is the fact that it says the federal government, cannot outlaw treatment therapy for gay people trying to be straight. Now, this platform did not say we support the idea that gays should go to therapy to stop being gay. That's not what it said. It said that we believe people should have access to this therapy. Now, arguably, psychologists and psychiatrists around the country have said this is harmful. It is bad for you. Do not get this therapy if you have a problem with your gayness. It will hurt your mental state. It will affect your mind. It's bad for you. Detrimental. Bad, 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 bad. Don't drink poison. That's a fair argument. But I believe in the right of people to be extremely stupid and make their own decisions. I don't believe the government has a right to tell people they can't get therapy for stupid reasons. I don't believe that the government has the right to tell people they can't have their palm read, that they can't read the tea leaves, that they can't believe in their horoscope, and things like that. You have the right to be stupid. You have the right to drive your car to the point to where it runs out of oil and then you need to replace the engine because you're an idiot and you didn't get your oil changed. You have the right to be stupid in this country. And so saying that they do not support the government's ability or right to make this therapy illegal is stupid. I mean, well, it's not stupid. The therapy is stupid. The saying that they don't think the government should be able to ban this therapy, I agree with 100%. People are allowed to be stupid. Let them be stupid. Let them. It's not your problem. It's not your business. Now, a lot of people in government say that they have a right to regulate things that hurt people so that they don't hurt themselves. That's crap. That's utter crap. Keep plants from exploding. Oh, wait, free market does that. Keep food from being poisonous. Oh, wait, free market does that. Oh, wait. No, we don't need government to regulate it. Just let people be stupid. If they are going and getting gay therapy without reading about how harmful it is to them, they are stupid. Let them be stupid. And the platform also spoke about how gay marriage is wrong and they don't believe in, you know, the activist courts is what they said. Look, legally speaking, there is no argument against gay marriage. It is a contract, a private contract entered into by private individuals. To say that the government has the right to tell me who I sign a contract with, like a marriage contract, is to say they have the right to tell me how and with who I enter all contracts with. For example, if I want to buy a guitar, the government does not have a right to tell me who I buy a guitar from, what kind of guitar I buy, what color it needs to be, how long I can own it, and make me pay a licensing fee to own it. It doesn't affect anybody. Now, you could argue that me cranking my amp up to 11 and jamming like a rock star could hurt my neighbor's right to privacy, security in their homes, peace and quiet, that kind of thing. You can make that argument. But there's no argument on what you can buy. And it's really hypocritical for people to say government can't regulate purchasing of guns and then turn around and say, oh, but they can regulate marriage. It's incredibly hypocritical. And what's worse, Felicia Cravens out of Houston wrote a really great article about this. It's on Free Radical Network called Walk the Plank. And she was at this conference. She posted this article yesterday. Yesterday. And she talked about how the Texas GOP releases this 30-page party platform that's not even cited really by candidates on the right in many cases, and how all it really is a Christmas present wrapped up nice and neat for Democrats to use against Republicans. And she's exactly right. The idea that we have a 30-page platform basically just shows that many of the positions in it are indefensible, and that's why they feel the need to qualify everything in it with massive explanations. If they really wanted, if the Texas GOP leadership really wanted to do the party a favor, they would just stick to very simple lines. You know, I would even be willing to write it for them. Just give me some paper, and I will write it in pencil, in crayon. I don't care. And I'll just give you simple bullet points. Keep government out of my house. Keep government out of my bedroom. Keep government out of my wallet. Keep government out of my economy. Keep government out of my gun safe. Keep government out of my life. Tell me how many people wouldn't approve of that. A bunch of liberals, maybe. A bunch of liberals would say that I don't have the right to be free in some instances because they think it makes them unsafe. They would be very, very wrong, but they can make that argument. But the idea that Texans are making the argument that they can dictate contracts, that judges are somehow radicals for saying people have the right to sign contracts, is ridiculous. And all you're doing is showing how uninclusive the party is. And the same thing goes with immigration. To not recognize the fact that most immigrants don't come to the country to do harm, saying that, it hurts the country to have people come here to do work, is crazy. Now, as I said earlier, I support no amnesty. I support, closing off the border for security reasons. And I have trouble with immigration because of our minimum wage laws. But, these are very, very, very simple policies to implement. The conservative platform is not a difficult one to make, to win people over with. Leave me alone. That's not hard for people to understand. But the problem is you get so many conservatives that think that God tells them to tell people how to live their lives and that they should use government to do it. And I would tell these people, and if this is you, listen up. Go read your Bible and see how many times Jesus did that. Go read your Bible and see how many times Jesus said Caesar needs to pass a law so gays can't get married. Caesar needs to pass a law to give more money from the rich to the poor. See how many times Jesus said that. See how many times he put a sword to somebody's neck and demanded they do something. Bet you don't find a single instance. All right, that's our show for tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to like the page, facebook.com/America Our Way. Follow me on Twitter, @America Our Way. I am your host, Dustin Hoyt. This is, of course, America Our Way, and you are listening to Vigilant Liberty Radio.